The verdict was unmistakable. The king had poisoned himself through years of excess. Perhaps most disturbing of all was the discovery of Henry's final meal, still undigested in his stomach. Even in death, his body testified to his last act of gluttony, a meal of roasted birds, beef, bread and wine consumed only hours before he died. It was a grotesque but fitting end for a monarch whose entire life had been defined by excess. The physicians who performed the secret post-mortem reported that Henry's internal organs were beyond recognition. His heart was grossly enlarged, his liver marbled with fat, and his intestines bloated with decay. Infection had ravaged his lower limbs, spreading through the bloodstream until it poisoned every part of him. The sheer size of his stomach defied belief, its lining stretched and ulcerated from years of abuse. There was no mystery left. He had simply eaten himself to death. Painted the portrait of a man who had become a walking monument to his own self-destruction. Henry VIII had transformed from the embodiment of Renaissance vitality into the ultimate cautionary tale of power without restraint. His appetites, whether for food, women, or control, had devoured not only his body, but also his humanity. In the days following his death, the royal court was consumed by a strange mixture of relief and dread. Servants whispered that the palace seemed to breathe again for the first time in years, freed from the constant odor of decay and the terror of his rage. Yet that relief was shadowed by fear. Henry's death left a vacuum, and no one dared speak openly of his condition. His physicians were ordered to silence, and the reports of his illness were sealed in the archives. The image of the great king had to be preserved, even if it bore no resemblance to reality. But rumors spread quickly. Word of the bursting coffin traveled across Europe, carried by ambassadors who had once seen the monstrous figure of the king with their own eyes. To foreign courts, it seemed a fitting metaphor. The body of England's ruler, swollen and rotting, unable even in death to contain its own corruption. In London, sermons cautiously referred to the king's passing as the triumph of the flesh over the soul. Commoners who had once celebrated Henry as their golden prince now spoke of him as a man cursed by God for his greed. Yet among the nobility, a fearful silence prevailed. Chroniclers who later described the event struggled to find words adequate for the contradiction. Here was a king who had once ruled through terror and charisma alike, now reduced to a cautionary spectacle. Some wrote that the gases that burst from his coffin were divine punishment. Others suggested it was nature reclaiming what had been unnaturally prolonged. All agreed that his end seemed to carry a moral message, as if the universe itself had turned against the man who believed he could conquer it. In the aftermath, England found itself haunted by the memory of its fallen monarch. Henry's reign had reshaped religion, law, and power, but what lingered most vividly in the collective imagination was his physical ruin. Painters commissioned after his death carefully avoided depicting his later years.